All right, everyone, it's Jerrad Havens here, financial freedom strategist and CEO of Credit Life, inspiring financial wellness. Like I talked about last week, so every week I'm going to be doing an educational live. My goal is to empower people with education, knowledge, and motivation for you to take action to improve your life. And so, last couple weeks, I've gone over a lot around business owners, business credit, business finance. And what I wanted to touch on today, I feel like needs to be spoken about a lot more is the fact of how much debt there is in general right now. How many people are carrying a lot of debt? I imagine if you're watching this, I wouldn't be surprised if you're someone that has increased credit card debt, higher payments per month. You're starting to feel the pressure. It can add up quickly. And so before I get started, I actually kind of laid out, if you see me looking over here, I got some notes here. I've laid out a 6-step plan, okay? But before I get into the 6-step plan, I just want to explain so you understand, like, look, this can impact everyone. It's impacted me. I went through a lot, so in my history, in the course of, owning Credit Life with my business partner, Brian, and over the course since 2015, growing this company, I hit a point where I was doing extremely well financially. And even being in this industry for as long as I have, when you start to do better financially, you get to a point where it's like, look, when it comes to my income and my expenses, I'm doing so well that I don't necessarily, at least at that time, felt like I needed to really track my spending as tight as I do now. I felt like, look, I make enough. I can do my lifestyle here. I have things that I want. Life is good. Okay. And for me personally, when we went really post COVID, it was not so much in COVID, but it was the year after 2021 and on when, prices of homes increased greatly. After that, sometime after that, we saw interest rates begin to increase. And for us at Credit Life, we work with a lot of people that want to buy a home. So we ourselves felt an impact, just like in real estate and mortgage and other in auto industry. We also felt an impact of just people in general, people's buying confidence was down. And so luckily, we are positioned to be resilient, and I have an amazing team, and we were able to ride out the storm, and we are back on a really good path. But what I want to talk about is my personal experience around this, where I had to make some really hard choices, and it was difficult for me. I mean, my ego was hit. Being able to, I had a Ford Raptor, which was my dream truck. I had this new place. Things were going well with the family. I always had excess money for spending. And then that all changed over time. I had to make hard decisions, and there was a massive ego hit. There really was, having to get rid of my baby, my truck. That was horrible for me. That really hit me. There's a lot of things that I had to do to weather the storm. And if you're following my posts at all, I've been talking about reclaiming my power, as of this year and really taking charge of my life. This was a big part of it for me because during that time, I just wasn't making the best financial decisions. I kept thinking during that time, things will get better. I'll make more money. Everything will work out just fine. Which, don't get me wrong, being a positive and action-based thinker is a good thing, but it's not necessarily a good thing when you think that way, but don't back that up with real action to even empower that type of growth, to empower that type of focus, that drive, that direction. If you don't have those two things together, you're not putting yourself in the best position to actually grow from this. And so that's where my shift happened, going into this year was knowing like, look, I still have drive. I still have the ability to be successful. I still have my company and a great team. I know exactly how to get through this. And then backing that up with action. And one of the biggest things that I did right away was was really taking charge of my financial future again. And so that's what I'm going to share with you, exactly what I've been doing that's been working phenomenal, where I'm back on track in a way that I know if you follow this plan, you will feel the exact same way. And so one thing that I want to touch on is just the fact of right now we see all-time highs in credit card debt. Obviously we know that when it comes to credit card debt, interest rates are, significantly high, like 29%. It becomes very easy where you have carrying higher balances and they continue to compound. That interest compounds and your balance goes up and up and up. And before you know it, you have so much happening in an outgo, your outgo expenses, your minimum payments compound on each other. And now you're almost living paycheck to paycheck just to afford your minimum payments on top of your other fixed expenses. This is how you kind of get in that trap. You keep leveraging credit cards, which is technically a way of delayed spend, and you're paying interest as a fee to allow you to have delayed spend. But if you continue to lean on that for too long and your balances just keep going up and up, well, now that delayed spend alone is causing financial hardship, let alone figuring out how do I even get out of this where I can start to see some headway on bringing my debt load down. So I get it. If you're someone right now going through that and you're like, look, I got so much debt right now, my payments are crazy, I'm just working as hard as I can, and I barely make it every single month, then this is for you and what I'm talking about, okay? Now, the first step that we want to do, so we have to address spending. I know when people hear the word budget and things like that, they get put off, okay? But here's the thing about it, psychologically. You need to be aware of your spending habits. And the best way to do that is to go back and look at your bank statements, look at any credit card statements, really compile all that data, and from there analyze, where is my money going? That's your first step right there. You need to have a clear understanding of where is my money going. Okay, that's number one. Then from there, you want to begin to create a spending plan. And so the best thing, the easiest way to go about this is one, you're going to categorize fixed expenses, right? Whether it be rent, utility, mortgage, auto payments, things like that. Anything that's fixed, that's more consistent. You know, utilities I know can fluctuate a little bit, but these are my fixed expenses every single month, okay? And then from there, we need to begin to look at like more what I term as like flexible expenses, you know, that they can kind of go up and down and you can kind of control that a little bit more, which could be groceries, gas, you know, going out to eat, certain things like that, be more of your flexible expenses, okay? And then from there, you still need to implement some fun, okay? I know everyone's lifestyle is a little bit different, but what I found is that if you don't necessarily, if you kind of lock down too hard, too quick, it's almost like the old rule of thumb. Like if you go too hardcore too quick, you have a higher probability of failing, okay? So I highly recommend kind of looking at your lifestyle and understanding that, you know, if I'm in the grind right now, if I'm under pressure, but I still want to have a little bit of freedom, I don't want to feel like I'm just completely locked down and doing nothing at all. Well, then just understand that as you're creating a spending plan, implement a category there per month where you know, hey, I still want to be able to go out with friends once per month, or I still want to be able to do this. Or maybe it's something that you want to save for the future, like a vacation. Anything that's going to motivate you to follow through on this plan where you don't feel like you're eliminating everything and you still have some flexibility, I highly recommend doing that as long as the income justifies it, okay? And then you need to have a future savings plan in there, okay? So one thing that I was reading about is, I can't remember the exact statistic right now, but it was significantly high that the vast majority of Americans right now don't even have 1 or 2 months in savings for their expenses at all. So on top of people living paycheck to paycheck right now, the vast majority of people don't even have a savings that if something happened, they're essentially screwed. They don't have any reserves enough to at least last 2, 3 months of expenses to give themselves time to either rebound. Maybe it's a loss of job, job transition, maybe a spouse lost a job, maybe a spouse, you know, something changed and their income went down, maybe they had to go part-time, and there's so many different variables that can happen there. So you have to make sure that as part of this process, and if it's something that you can't do immediately because we have to address the debt first, just understand a part of the plan is you're going to want to understand that at some point, I need to make sure I implement this into my spending plan because I want to build up reserves. I want to build up a savings, not only for reserves if something happens, you know, like the oh crap moment, but also to savings for the future. You know, maybe you're looking to buy a home in the future. Maybe you're a business owner and you want, or maybe you want to start a business, whatever it might be. You know, those things are going to be really important. But the most important piece in all of this that I'm explaining right now is you have to identify where's the money going. We need to put those in as what it stands. So like look at the past 3 to 6 months, average out the expenses, all of them between fixed, flexible, credit cards going out, all the different things, put them into categories so you understand like, okay, here's where my money's going. And then from there, identify areas of overspend. Like I am spending way too much money going out to eat. I had no idea. That's one thing that happened with me a lot when with me and the family. I mean, we went out to eat like all the time. You know, I was buying stuff all the time, going to the gas station every single day. That adds up fast. And the worst part about it is when you go back and kind of look back, you realize, dude, that money didn't do anything for me at all. Literally did nothing for me. At least for me, it just made me fatter. So I just kept eating like crap. So you look back and you realize like that wasn't worth it, right? So like these are the type of aha moments that you want for yourself where you realize like, look, I want more in life. I want to actually plan for something. I want to build something real and I'm going to work towards it. That's what this is going to help you do. So we got to take control of our finances and it starts with a spending plan, okay? Now, there's a few different ways that you can go about tracking this. There are digital trackers where you can kind of track your spending. You could do this through envelopes. I know there's a lot of people that like that, the old school feel where you know your fixed expenses that you kind of set up through automatic bill pay, right? And then you have your more flexible expenses I'm talking about. And you can take that out as cash and put it into envelopes so you track it and you only spend what you have. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about that. So I'd recommend identifying what would work best for you. If you're someone where it's like, look, if I just put this in an envelope and then I know that whatever's in there is what I have for that week or that month for that specific category, if that works well with you, then you should do that. If you're someone that's more digital and you like to be able to track things as you go and just know what's left for that month through like your cell phone app or something like that, then that's perfect. That's what you should do. But you need to identify what's going to work best for you so that way you can make this happen. Now, the last piece I'll bring up before we go into the next step is that if you have a spouse or you have a partner, right, you should really talk about doing this type of stuff together, okay? I think that's absolutely critical. Just because if you guys have big goals that you want to accomplish together, it's going to be a joint effort. And if you combine your forces, you have a much higher probability of succeeding. The best way I can explain it is like, think about it like this. Like you're someone that recently got into the gym, you're trying to lose weight, right? When you have support from close friends and family members, it helps you stay motivated to the goal to succeed. That type of support system helps. Well, same thing when it comes to your financial health. If you have the right support system in your home, in your family, it's going to automatically increase your probability of success. So I highly recommend that you guys communicate and really kind of put together this plan together and work it together if you can. All right. Now we're going to talk about attacking your debt with strategy. All right. So there's a few different ways that we can go about this. And I brought this up before last week. I don't know if you saw that live, but I'm going to go into detail here. First thing that we want to talk about is going to be debt reduction strategies. Okay. Not debt relief. I'm going to talk about debt relief in a bit, but I'm talking about legit debt reduction strategies based on your household income, based on your situation, and how to get out of debt over time. Okay. Now, there's a couple popular terms out there. You have the snowball method, and then you have what's called either avalanche or cascade method. Okay. Now, each one is going to help you, but what you need to identify and think about this. I know I had to think about this. What's going to get you motivated? Like, what's going to, like, when you start to experience the wins, what's going to help you keep going? All right. So for me, I like the snowball method. And the reason being, the way that the snowball method works is you identify, typically it's going to be credit cards. You're going to start with the lowest balance first. So you're setting it up where you're making minimum payments on all your accounts, right? All your fixed expenses, your minimum payments on your credit cards. You don't want to go late on everything, okay? On anything. You want to stay current. And then any additional funds you begin to allocate towards the card that has the lowest balance. The goal is over time to get that paid off to zero. So whatever that minimum payment was, plus your additional payment, you're now going to snowball down into the next one. Now, for me, the reason why I like that model is I just think psychologically, you feel the wins faster. I got something paid off. Let's celebrate. This is good. Not go celebrate and spend more money, but celebrate the fact that I actually did something here. I felt the win. Okay, that's why I like that. And it will help you get out of debt faster. There's another method, avalanche or cascading, and that's where you're going to focus on the highest interest first, okay? So this is more specific to someone that's playing the long game. They're in a position right now where they can afford all their payments, okay? They're stressing, but they're not, they have some excess funds, okay? They just know they want to get out of debt. Well, this is where you will experience the most potential savings by focusing on the highest interest first. So it's a similar model where you're going to make sure you set things up where you make your payments on time because we don't want to go late if we can avoid it on anything. And then from there, we're going to focus additional funds to pay down the account that has the highest interest rate first. And then from there, work it down till when it's paid off, we're now allocating down to the next one. When I'm talking about like when something gets paid off, we're moving that minimum payment plus the additional payment. A lot of times that's termed as a power down move. Okay. So now I'm powering this down to the next one. And it compounds on itself over time. It's going to help you get out of debt much faster when you do that, okay? So you need to understand what I'm talking about right now is think about this, like what's going to benefit you? If you're someone that has like, you know, let's say 7 credit cards that range between, I don't know, $1,000 limit to $5,000 and They range in balance. Maybe some are at like 50% balance, some are at like almost maxed out, whatever it might be. You might be someone that will benefit from the snowball just because of the fact that you're going to experience some debt relief in a way where like I got something paid off. I'm experiencing that win faster where I know I got this sucker paid off. It's zero. Yes. Okay. Once again, on the opposite end, if you're someone that is more focused on the long game, maybe you have more debt. Maybe you have, you want to get your mortgage paid off along with credit cards, whatever that might be. That's typically when Cascade or Avalanche is going to be a better option for you because you're honed in on going this over a length of period of years potentially to get out of debt completely and save the most amount of money. Okay. That's how I'd look at those two things. And you got to celebrate the wins along the way. The more in tune you are with your progress, that's exactly what you want to be doing. All right. Now, let's talk about the next step, protecting and rebuilding credit. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is that a lot of people, and this happened to me too, I'm being completely transparent with everyone. I have nothing to hide. This happened to me too. And so you have to understand that if you've gone through a hardship in life and you had to kind of make these course corrections, which is a good thing because you recognize what's going on and you want to move forward and take control of your future, this is all good stuff. But we need to focus in on now that I'm getting a handle on my spending plan, now that I get a handle on my finances, now that I have a handle on where I'm going and what I want, we also need to take credit into consideration. A lot of people experience a negative impact to their credit, whether you had accounts that you had some late payments on, maybe you had some accounts that went to collection or charged off status, things like that. So you want to begin to understand that the credit damage is there and there's ways to repair and rebuild that. But my recommendation is don't look at that part of the process yet until you get your financial situation straight. You need to make sure that you're in a position financially to afford what's necessary to rebuild your credit. So if you need to figure out, is this a debt issue right now, or is this a credit issue? The best way I explain that for anyone listening to this is that if you're experiencing hardship and you're having a hard time making your payments and you know you need to get out of debt, well, then you have a debt issue and that should be a focus. If you're someone where it's like, look, I've had issues in the past, I had some collections, some late payments, I'm doing better now financially, I'm trying to buy a home for my family, I'm trying to move forward, that is more so a credit issue, which means at that point it makes sense to begin to work on your credit, repair, rebuild, empower your credit, improve scores, get in a position to qualify for financing. That's the perfect time. So you have to understand. But if you've gone through this issue, I want everyone to understand that there are options available. We do this every single day at Credit Life. We've helped thousands of people at this point. We help people with financial wellness. We help them with credit repair and credit building. We help with coaching, and we even help business owners, okay, when it comes to business credit. We do a lot here, and we rock it out, and we really do it right, okay? Now, protecting, what do I mean by that? So a lot of times when you start to experience the improvement when it comes to your financial situation and your credit, you need to protect your credit. So one of the best ways that you can do that is maintaining online credit monitoring that includes identity theft protection. That's very important. So for us here at Credit Life, we use what's called My 800 Credit. And the reason being is that it provides a very detailed 3-bureau credit report that we need for our clients to know what's going on so we have full awareness. So do you, so we can see exactly what's changing and how the scores are changing. But more importantly, it comes with $1 million identity theft protection plan. Think about it like this, you know what's going on. A lot of people, there's a lot of fraudulent activity out there right now. So as you're improving, when your financial situation's improving and your credit's improving, well, you're a potential victim, okay? So you got to protect yourself. So just know that. Don't overlook these steps. The last thing you want to do is get in a better position and all of a sudden you run into this crazy situation where identity theft and you don't have things set up and you're having a hard time getting back on track and it kind of kicks you down again. Let's be proactive and let's plan to avoid that from happening again in the future. Now, the next step that I want to talk about is shifting the mindset. I'm going to take some time on this, okay? I have some notes here. So I'm going to talk about myself right now to see if this relates to anyone. I needed to have the mindset shift because for me, I kept thinking, and maybe this is a guy thing, I don't know, but you can't help but think like, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you're an opportunity seeker, don't worry, I'm going to figure this out. Don't worry, I'm going to make more money. Don't worry, I'm going to do this. We continue to look at, I'm just going to solve this problem by making more money. Okay. And that's not a bad thing. You're like, for me, I'm doing better and I'm going to continue to do better. This is good, but I have a plan now. That's the difference. So don't lose your drive for wanting to do better financially. You need that a part of your plan. But you need to shift your mindset to understand that if you don't address the habits, for me, I overspent. I already talked about it. Going out to eat a lot, buying things I didn't need. I mean, I was buying a TV, I felt like every single month. It's crazy. Okay. These are things that just weren't necessary. So you need to have a plan. You need to recognize your habits in the past and go, look, this was not serving me. This was not serving my family. In fact, this put us backwards. And so you need to take time to understand and take accountability for what you did and what you don't like and what you do like. And then from there, say, okay, I'm going to shift my mindset. And that's why I love goals. If you have a goal, like if you want to buy a home, or if you want to start a business, or if you want to be debt free, or if you want to take vacations twice a year with your family, maybe it's a mixture of those things. You need to shift the mindset, begin to take control of your financial future, and then understand where you're going and why. Okay. These all need to come together because once you have all that pieces together, that's when you can begin to shift the mindset. And then you can take it a step further. When you start to really experience real time the power behind money management and how you can flip it from it becoming like a burden and a stressor to all of a sudden now, oh my goodness, I'm doing better financially. Now I can actually have my money work for me. That's the moment that you want to get to. And so that to me is why mindset's so important, because if you operate from a limited mindset, like, oh, this happened because of this, and things aren't going to change, and I've been trying to do this forever, nothing changes. You got to stop that right now. And you just start thinking like, look, anything can change. Anyone can change if they want to, okay? And then from there, understand once again, what are your goals? What do you want? And once you can do that, begin to go back and identify the habits that haven't been serving you so you know exactly how to move forward. This all goes hand in hand. It really does, because a lot of people who have financial problems outside of unforeseen circumstances typically come from bad financial disciplines, whether it was taught to them at a young age or they weren't taught it at all. And they're just habits that they began to have at a young age, like when they're 18 and got their first credit card all the way up to adult life. Okay. This is what happens. So you have to begin to start making all these shifts. Okay. So I wanted to kind of go through a recap here, just like I really want to begin to empower people on like how this works. And the last thing I want to bring up before I go to a recap is I want to talk about debt relief, because I said I would last week. So let's actually go back to the rebuilding credit and the attack debt strategy. All right. We do offer debt relief strategies here at Credit Life. And I want to explain how this works, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there as to how this works. So once again, what I talked about previously, we need to identify, is this a debt issue or is this a credit issue, or is it both, but which takes precedence? What's more important? Okay. If it's a debt issue, and let's say you're in a situation where you have account cards like credit cards, you're becoming late on them, 30 days late, 60 days late, 90 days late, maybe some went to collection. You're like in the storm right now, like you're in it right now. Okay. This is where debt relief can become a massive advocate for you, because if you think about it, the damage is already happening to your credit. The damage is done. So we're not necessarily protecting anything yet. It's more about, I need to get out of this situation. Okay. This is where debt relief can be a massive advocate for you, because on average, I can't tell you exactly because it is situational, but I can confidently say this. On average, people end up saving roughly 50% when they go through debt relief type programs. So essentially what it is it's negotiating what's called a structured settlement with payments over time. It can be multiple years for less than full balance. And in addition to that, it stops interest accruing, which then saves you additional money. So when you start to look at what am I saving here? Like if I take action on this now, you have to understand that when you don't, interest rate and fees continue to accrue. So you're just allowing the balance to go up over time by not addressing it. And once again, like if you can enter into a structured settlement with payments over time, we stop that interest from accruing. We stop those additional fees. We've now made an agreement that this is what I'm settling for less than full balance over the course of, let's say, 3 years with monthly payments over time. That is debt relief in a sense, okay? So we have a company, a sister company that works with us that provides that service to people. It's fantastic. It's extremely effective. It allows you to get out of debt significantly faster, save a ton of money, and then it'll make it quicker to jump to the next step, which is let's get my credit back on track. Let's get my finances in order, okay? Because now I have significantly less debt, okay? Now there is another option that we have. Let's say you're that person I talked about before, where it's like, look, I'm struggling to make my payments, but I'm making them and I want to get out of debt. Well, debt relief can also come into play here. We have a nonprofit that we work with. This is more geared towards someone that wants to protect their credit, okay? They're not trying to get late payments and stuff like that, which is good. If you don't have any, you want to protect that. I highly recommend that. Whereas what they do there is they represent our clients. They kind of help do an analysis of what's going on with all of the debt load, all the different credit cards. Like there's certain debts that can be included. Mortgage is not going to be included. Student loans aren't going to be included, but a lot of other debts are, especially unsecured debts. And then from there, they're able to negotiate. Typically, the way it works is like this. They will close, say it's a credit card. What they essentially do is they're going to close the card. They can then negotiate to reduce the overall interest as low as 0%, and then structure payments over time to pay that off in full. You avoid any late payments from reporting on your credit report. You're going to save a ton of money in interest because that interest stops accruing. You will ultimately end up paying off the full balance at that moment in time over time. So you're not necessarily doing a settlement for less than full balance. You are paying off the balance, but you're stopping interest, or at least a significant portion of it, from accruing during that time. So you end up saving a ton of money, okay? And then at the end of that, you can always reopen up the account with that institution, okay? So like there's some phenomenal options. So as a recap, if you're someone right now that you've either experienced an issue, you're in the storm right now, you really want to hone in on your debt, you reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation with you, a discovery session, just to kind of figure out what's going on. We can see, is this a debt issue, a credit issue, is it both? And then formulate an overall game plan to get you back on track. I'm living proof of it, okay? Do this every single day. Had to do it for myself. So like, I understand. And that will be our first step. But we need to hone in on spending plan, awareness of where our money's going, where we want it to go, so it's more proactive than reactive. We want to create an attack debt with strategy plan, whether it be debt relief or debt reduction strategies. We then want to hone in on protecting and rebuilding our credit to maximize future potential and save on overall interest and achieve our goals. And we really want to hone in on mindset. We want to begin to shift the mindset from this is what happened to me, this won't work, to I now know what I need to do, I feel better, I know how to execute, okay? So hopefully this was helpful for everyone here today. Really pumped up. I want to do a lot more of this. And I really appreciate anyone that's watched this. I'd love it if you share it, comment, like, question, DM me, PM me, whatever the terms are, I don't care. Reach out, and look forward to talking to you soon.